Before we get into that, the players to Indiana Fever pretty much let go and they did not protect. Shout out to Chloe Peterson. She just put out an article. She stated the Fever lost Chloe Bibby and Christy Wallace to the double expansion draft Friday afternoon, but neither of those departures affected their core group. Here's where the Fever go from here from the consensus of the offseason. Let's read some of this article, man. It stated the first piece of the WNBA offseason has finished, and the Indiana Fever could turn their...
Things are moving along reasonably well for the Indiana Fever, though the team absorbed a notable loss when a player who had built a real following among supporters was taken off the roster. Chloe Bibby is no longer part of the organization. The complete roster breakdown for the expansion teams was put out by WNBA Underdog, confirming that Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall were shielded from selection, which had been widely expected heading into the draft. Sports journalist Chloe Peterson published a piece covering the full picture of what went down.
Finished, and the Indiana Fever could turn their attention to free agency and the collegiate draft. Did a video yesterday kind of breaking down the collegiate draft there. Some players that we need to keep an eye out on for us with the Indiana Fever. The article goes on to say in the first multiple team expansion draft in the league since 2000, the Toronto Tempo picked Christy Wallace and Portland Fire picked Chloe Bibby from the Indiana Fever unprotected list. And Friday afternoon, the Indiana Fever were only able to protect 5.
The Fever lost both Chloe Bibby and Christy Wallace to the double expansion draft on Friday, with Toronto Tempo claiming Wallace and Portland Fire selecting Bibby off the unprotected list. This marks the first time the league has held a multi-team expansion draft since 2000. Despite those departures, neither exit is expected to shake the foundation of what Indiana has built. The Fever were limited to shielding 5 players going into the draft.
5 players from that expansion draft. While the protection list was not made public, the Tempo and Fire's pick mean the Fever likely protected who? Now, y'all remember we talked about this yesterday. They protected Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hall, Kelsey Mitchell, Michaela Timpson, obviously is still under contract. Now, I thought KK was possibly going to leave. Chloe Peterson went on to say Bibby and Wallace departure also.
Though the official protection list was never made public, the picks made by both expansion clubs point to Indiana having kept Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hall, Kelsey Mitchell, and Michaela Thompson, who remains under an active deal. Chloe Bibby had been a reserve-level contributor who could have added depth to the front court on a minimum salary, but she only appeared in 9 games during the 2025 season before a knee injury shut her down. There has been plenty of chatter online about how that injury happened, with some fans connecting it to a top golf event the team attended, though nothing concrete has been confirmed. As for Christy Wallace, she had already sat out the entire 2025 season for personal reasons.
Was possibly going to leave. Chloe Peterson went on to say Bibby and Wallace departure also should not affect the Fever too much as they move into planning for the 2026 season. Bibby was a reserve free agent. Now, she could have been a depth piece for the Fever front court, especially on minimum contract, but she also played 9 games for the Indiana Fever in the 2025 season before she was shut down for the season with that knee injury. Now, it's a lot of conspiracy going on with Christy Wallace injury. A lot of people saying they believe she got injured from that top golf.
Many people had forgotten she was still technically on the payroll through that year. Her road with the Fever was already rocky, having gone from a starting role to minimal playing time during the previous coaching era. Moving forward, the Fever hold negotiating rights to 5 players, with Clark, Boston, and Thompson under contract. Kelsey Mitchell sits at the center of the most pressing decision.
And they believe she got injured from that top golf event. She was good before that, but we ain't even finna go down that rabbit hole. Goes on to say Wallace had a rocky 2024 season, going from a starter to a player who barely got minutes midseason under former Fever coach Christy Sides. Wallace opted to sit out of the 2025 season for personal reasons. Those of you guys who might not notice, Christy Wallace was definitely still on a contract, and I think a lot of us actually forgot that Christy Wallace was still under contract, man.
General Manager Amber Cox noted after the season that Mitchell qualifies as an unrestricted free agent, but the team can also designate her as a core player, which would give Indiana exclusive negotiating rights in exchange for a supermax offer worth around $1.4 million. The thought around many circles is that handing Mitchell that full amount may not be the smartest use of cap space, given that Clark and Boston are both expected to land supermax extensions of their own. A contract closer to the $900,000 to $1.1 million range would make more sense, freeing up room to add pieces that could push the team toward a championship. Staying in Indiana still gives Mitchell a stronger shot at a title than most other destinations could realistically offer.
Wallace was still under contract, man. They were still paying her for the 2025 season. Now, the Fever will now go into free agency with rights to 5 players, including contracts with Caitlin Clark, Boston, and Timpson. Kelsey Mitchell was the Fever's #1 priority, which we kind of knew. General Manager Amber Cox said following the season that Clark said on an appearance on NBC2 that Kelsey Mitchell would be an unrestricted free agent, but she is also a court.
Lexi Hall enters free agency as a restricted player, meaning other teams can make her offers, but Indiana holds the right to match anything that comes in. Hall bought a home in Indiana with her fiancé last year and has already signaled a desire to stay. Among the players whose cases stand out for a pay increase, Hall is near the top of that list given the consistency she brought every time she was on the floor. Qualifying offers to both Mitchell and Hall are set to go out on April 7th, after which Indiana can begin engaging with outside free agents.
Eligible, meaning the Fever can offer her a supermax of $1.4 million in exchange for exclusive negotiating rights. Mitchell was cored in the 2025 season. I just don't think they're going to core her because I believe how it works is that if they core her, they got to pay her that max. And I don't think they should give Kelsey Mitchell the max. I think Kelsey Mitchell should be a trooper and take like a $900,000 to $1.1 million range contract, leave some of that cap space.
Sophie Cunningham, who was starting before going down with an injury in August, is expected to be a priority to bring back. Ari McDonald has been mentioned as a potential backup option at point guard behind Clark, though her return is far from certain. On the expansion side, Toronto Tempo built a roster that includes Bridget Carlton, Emily, Maya Caldwell, Haley Jones, Sarah Ashley, Sug Sutton, and Nakamule, among others. Portland Fire made headlines by landing Marina Marbury, who had been with Connecticut and had been open about wanting a change of scenery.
$0.1 million range contract, leave some of that cap space to get other players and try to get a ring this year, bro. Because if she go to one of these other teams, it ain't no guarantee Kelsey Mitchell gonna get a championship or ever become a championship player. Everybody's forgetting about that part. That's the only reason I think she stayed this year. And next year, I don't believe she's going to get a meal at all from the Fever. She would definitely have to go somewhere else because that money is going to be taken up by Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. They're definitely going to get supermax contracts.
Each expansion club was permitted to select one potential unrestricted free agent, and Marbury and Carlton were the 2 chosen in that category. With the CBA finalized and the expansion draft wrapped up, the path ahead for Indiana is straightforward. The front office can now turn its full attention to locking up their core and filling out the roster before training camp opens on April 19th. The window between now and then is tight, making the next few weeks one of the more consequential stretches in recent franchise history.
Stays in the Toronto Tempo? No. I think Julie Alamon gets traded because I think Julie Alamon has that type of value. I think they're going to tank. Julie Alamon's one of those players that is a good player on a... if you put... Julie Alamon with a bunch of good players, she can run the show. But if you put Julie Alamon on a team of bad players, she's not going to do much. So I think she's actually going to be traded. Niara Sabally is an interesting one, which means that the Liberty protected.
The Toronto Tempo, the WNBA's first expansion franchise, walked away from the expansion draft holding the 2nd overall selection, and the roster they assembled is more competitive than many expected heading into the process. Julie Alamond represents a fascinating case study among the Tempo's selections. She is a genuinely capable player, but her effectiveness tends to be tied directly to the quality around her. Surrounded by talented teammates, she can orchestrate an offense effectively.
The Liberty protected their overseas players, which I kind of get. Like, if Raquel Carrera is going to be over, she is better than Niara, so I guess it's an interesting one. Marina Mabry is going to be there. Look, she's going to make $1.4 million. It's as simple as that. Like, Marina Mabry's going to make $1.4 million. Like, she's I think she'll be happy with that. She'll make 1.4 million and probably be an all-star. I am shocked.
Dropped onto a rebuilding squad with limited weapons, her impact shrinks considerably. There is a reasonable argument that the Tempo could move her in a trade and collect meaningful assets in return, given the value she carries around the league. Nara Sabi becoming available speaks to the New York Liberty's decision-making. With Raquel Carrera expected to return from overseas, the Liberty clearly made a calculated judgment that Carrera offers more than Sabi at this stage, making the protection decision fairly straightforward on their end.
I am shocked. I'm shocked the Aces did it again. I am shocked. The Aces did it again with Aaliyah Nye. They did it again. Like, they let the one player on a rookie deal leave. Just like last year with Kate Martin, they let the one player on a rookie deal leave. Marina Mabrey, or say Aaliyah Nye is big. Lexi Held from the Mercury. I thought Kat Westbeld was going to be taken, to be honest. But obviously Lexi Held was.
Marina Mabrey is essentially a guaranteed all-star at this point. At $1.4 million, she becomes the focal point of this franchise's early identity, and the expectation is that she performs at an elite level within that role. The Las Vegas Aces, meanwhile, repeated a pattern that raised eyebrows last offseason. Just as they allowed Kate Martin to walk away on a rookie contract a year ago, they have once again let a cost-controlled player Elonai depart without securing a return.
Thought Kat Westbeld was going to be taken, to be honest. But obviously Lexi Held was. Maria Conde is a really interesting one from the Valkyries. Because Maria Conde is probably the best of all the players. The thing with Maria Conde is she hasn't played in the WNBA. Like, she's my age. She's pushing 30 and she hasn't played in the WNBA. So, like, I do think personally that Maria Conde is a big asset, to be honest. I think she is a big asset. Like, if she's coming.
Lexi Held coming over from Phoenix was a mild surprise, with many observers anticipating Kat Westbeld to be the player moved in that direction. Maria Kai from the Valkyries is arguably the most intriguing name on the entire board. She has not logged WNBA minutes despite approaching her late 20s, which makes her something of an unknown quantity domestically. If she arrives committed and ready to compete at this level, the ceiling on her contributions could be significant.
A big asset, to be honest. I think she is a big asset. Like, if she's coming over and she's committed and she's playing, she's a huge asset. I have been shocked, though. Like, if Carla Late was unprotected and Maria Conde was there, I am shocked they did not take Letitia Emi here. I am shocked. I'm actually shocked they didn't take a single Canadian player. That Bridget Carlton, who was the very first pick of the draft, I'm shocked. I'm actually shocked. That being said, Maria Klindakova was a...
The decision not to pursue Carlala or Letitia Emi when both appeared available raised questions, and the absence of any Canadian player on a Toronto roster, particularly with Bridget Carlton going first overall, struck observers as a notable omission. Maria Klianova was widely projected to receive protection from Minnesota, so her availability came as a surprise. She is a dependable, well-rounded player who adds genuine value to any rotation. The Connecticut Sun selection of Milic drew some head-scratching reactions.
I'm actually shocked. That being said, Maria Klindakova was a player that I expected to be protected. I fully expected Maria Klindakova to be protected by... Sorry, 1 second. By the Lynx. I thought she was going to be fully thought she was going to be protected by the Lynx. And yeah, it wasn't. I think she's a good pick.
The Bosnian forward, now 31, has logged time with both Connecticut and Washington in prior seasons, averaging around 6 points per game during her most recent WNBA stint. With players like Marshall seemingly still on the board, the choice felt unusual. Kit Lax, by contrast, is a sharpshooting pick who fits the Tempo's emerging identity. This franchise has legitimate competitive DNA running through it, with Christy Wallace anchoring things.
And yeah, it wasn't. I think she's a good pickup. I think she's a really good pickup. Honestly, I think Klindakova is a very solid player. I will go over to Fire after the Tempo, by the way. I will go over the fire after Tempo. I think she's a nice pickup. Ija Kane, like, of course. Of course, like, the Liberty used the last pick of the fucking draft on a player. And they lose the last pick of the fucking draft. Like, they use a pick on a stash player they have no intention of bringing up.
Bridget Carleton's path is not fully closed. Unless Portland is prepared to offer the same maximum contract figure Toronto can put on the table, Carleton could still end up wearing a Tempo uniform through free agency. That door remains open. Looking at this roster in its entirety, before any free agency movement, this is a team capable of winning somewhere around 12 games.
Like, they use a pick on a stash player they have no intention of bringing over. And they take the last pick of last year's draft. Of course. Of course. No fans confirmed. No, I just don't actually know what's behind. Well, there's nothing. It's just a messy hotel room, to be honest. There's a bottle of Coke Zero down there. But Milic, who's Milic? Obviously Serbian, I'm guessing. Who does Milic play for? Okay.
That is not a disaster for a first-year expansion club. One impactful free agent addition could push this group into genuinely interesting territory. The draft haul rates somewhere between a 7.5 and an 8 out of 10 when accounting for the limited pool available and the smart acquisition of players like Alamond, Mabry, and Kleonova. The Tempo also carry the higher pick heading into the upcoming draft, which adds further long-term value to the foundation being built here.